And it's 10 o'clock. I call this Sawyer County Administration Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can I have roll call, please? Here.
Leader. You have a quorum.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, number 4, certification of compliance with open meeting law.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, number 5, meeting agenda. Everybody's looked at the agenda. Any questions with it? It's okay as presented. Okay, we'll go to number 6. Public comment. At this time, public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. And it will be just directed to the committee as a whole. Okay, Linda?
Linda Zilmer, Village of Birchwood resident, Edgewater property owner. I have 2 items that I would like to request to have placed on the July County Board meeting agenda for action. And they both involved an attempt I made through the Highway Department and Public Works to have these matters addressed. The first one is really significant in that the Secretary of the Department of Transportation is proposing a 2-year LRIP pilot program for 2 of the northern districts, whereby a couple of hired consultants would be assisting towns with preparing their grant applications and things like that. In the northern counties, for the most part, I think towns have worked really well with highway commissioners in putting together their projects. I guess there's some dissatisfaction downstate with how all these discretionary projects get awarded. I learned about this about last month at a Washburn County meeting and received a lot more background, as well as the forms that I emailed to you this morning. At that time, 2 counties had not approved being part of that pilot. And so when I asked to have it on the agenda for last night, I was told that this pilot program was not going forward. And yet I heard yesterday before the meeting that it was. And so then the highway commissioner updated Public Works last night that he intended to sign Sawyer County onto that pilot project this morning. I do think that with the implication to the towns and the reduction to the revenues for the county, that this should be at least acted on, since it was not acted on by the Public Works Committee, to please put it on county board. And the other item related to both public safety and highway is the Washburn County letter requesting legislation needed because of the demands of opening road routes and county highways to ATVs and UTVs, and other counties are signing on as supporting that Washburn County letter. And that is another thing that didn't make it to Public Works agenda last night. So if that could be advanced to county board, it would be appreciated.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else for public comment? Andy, anybody online? Okay. All right, number 7, approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Duffy. Do I have a second? Mr. Schleter. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion carries. Okay, number 8. Mural project letter of support, discussion and possible action item. State your name and address to Ron.
Ron Pettit from Winter, 5191 N Crawford Street. I represent Friends of the Tuscobia Trail. We're the group that's behind the Winter Depot project. And by the way, I want to thank this board for your enormous support for that project over the years. He helped us push it across the finish line. It's working very well right now. Adding to that project is the one you see in front of you. You should have a little description in front of you. As we know, politics is getting pretty divisive. People are at each other. There's arguments, conflicts, and some of them are pretty silly. They're just unnecessary. I don't buy into that. I can work with pretty much anyone. In support of this project, that is in fact, that is exactly why we want this project to go forward. This project uses art to promote cultural understanding between diverse groups. If you've been in Ladysmith and Bruce, you'll see these really nice murals of soldiers. That's the idea we have, but we want to add to it farmers, LCO, American Indians, railroad workers, teachers, government people, mothers, lumberjacks. And the theme is stronger together. And we believe that will help us become a more welcoming community. And I think it'll help other projects as well. The two areas where we're proposing, at least the beginning for the murals, is on the depot property between the depot and the Winter Co-op, and between the depot and a mini mall. The total number with those together is 92 individuals. There's 2 on each mural. That whole total comes to 32,200. That's $350 per person. We have 2 grants in mind. They both look absolutely doable. The T-Mobile grant will get us half of it. If we get half of it, we can apply to the Wisconsin Arts Board, which will do the other 50%. The artist is ready to roll. She's caught up on her projects, which is unusual. Usually it takes 2 years to get into her. She's from Butternut. We've also sent, today I'm only asking for a letter of support. That'll help us with the grants. Now, if there are other things you can do for us, for example, Sawyer County LCO, I've sent an email to them. I've been in communication with Tweed. If there's more you can do for us, we're very, very open to that. I'm willing to appear in front of your other committees like finance or economic development. We've also sent requests for letters to Sawyer County LCO Economic Development, Winter Area Chamber, Winter School District, the Tribe, the Public Library in Winter, American Legion in Winter, the Village of Winter, and now yourselves. So that's kind of the gist of it. A letter of support would really help us out. And if there's other things you can do, please let us know and we'll do whatever it takes. Thank you very much.
Right, you got any questions for Mr. Pettit, anybody?
I'll make a motion to approve the letter of support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Kinsley. I'll second that motion. Any more discussion?
Do we have in that support some kind of statement that they don't want any political or religious or offensive issues happening? I hate to use our support and find no control over what they are. It's not a matter.
I can speak to that. That's exactly what we don't want, is political and more conflict, right? We want to represent broadly all the different groups that have contributed to our area without engaging politics, which we know where that goes.
Okay.
Well, if once we endorse it, then we're behind whoever they put up, and we have no control over that. Is that?
Do you want to live without conflict?
I don't know, I, for example, I wonder if once you're here, who's going to ask for the approval? I didn't get it. Well, I know, I support the idea, it's great. As long as you're all fine, who knows in the future, who's.
Right. Yeah, you know, I got all the faith in the world, Mr. Pettit, so I believe in his word. So I've known him for years and
Thank you, sir.
yeah. So, all right, no more questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the letter of support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
All right, number 9, second courtroom staffing and funding update.
So this is a continuation of the presentation. Continuation of the discussion we had at the last month's board meeting and the request from the court system to add a second judicial assistant. So working with the current judge, as well as the district court and the staff we have, What I put together is a proposal that would create a second judicial assistant position. So the summary sheet shows that what our current staffing looks like for the court system. We have a clerk of court elected. We have a chief deputy that's appointed by the clerk of court. Then we have 4 deputy clerk of court positions. We have 1 registered and probate juvenile clerk and 1 judicial assistant. Those are our county funded court system positions. The judge itself, the court reporter, that's all funded by the state, and that's their state positions. The proposal would increase the total from 8 FTEs to 8.5 FTEs. We would be eliminating the current register and probate juvenile clerk position. As I mentioned last month, this part of this conversation came up timing wise because of the vacancy there. Shannon, who's our current individual in that position, is moving into the youth justice position in the CPS area in Health and Human Services. So rather than fill that position, we would split it, and the juvenile clerk duties would be assigned to the 2 judicial assistants. Typically, right now, the juvenile clerk person would clerk juvenile issues, juvenile proceedings for the court. Instead of having a separate person do it, that would be assigned to the judicial assistants, and they would do that duty for each of their judges. The register and probate duties would be assigned to the clerk of court's office. They were there at one time, and they were moved out into a separate position. Still working out as far as if the clerk of court would be designated at the register of probate, and then some of the staff as deputies, or how that might work. But regardless, the register of probate would function out of that office. The window would be used for that purpose, and there'd be more than 1 staff person capable of performing the duties. So that would take us up 1 half-time position would be the net increase. From a financial impact, what I've summarized is the current budget for staffing and salaries, the operational expenses for the court budget. That includes office expenses, but also interpreter costs, attorney costs, witness costs for court proceedings. That's $98,000. So our total budget right there now is $594,181. And I didn't put the whole budget in here, just kind of the applicable parts. Revenues, I mean, there's county levy in there. There's our portion of fines and proceeds and copy fees, but we do get $52,275,000 annually as state aid for the court system for having, that's 1 courtroom. That's the formula or the designated amount by the state that we get. When we go to 2 courtrooms, the formula changes a little bit. Right now, the formula is you get $42,275. And if you have 1 courtroom, you get $10,000 more. If you have 2 courtrooms, you get $42,275. Plus, they divide up a pool of money based on all the courtrooms, so that's the state. They've told us to project that we are going to get at least double what we're getting now. So we'll get at least $104,544. We'll get a pro rata amount for this year because our second courtroom will come online August 1st. So, with the proposal to shift the duties to those other areas and add a halftime position, we're projecting an increase in the budget of $22,108, essentially to fund the halftime position for the rest of this year. We also have added in some payroll adjustments for people taking on additional duties related to the splitting of the duties. But the additional state aid will cover, or at least covers very closely, that we don't need to request a budget amendment. The additional cost, the additional $21,781 of court aid is almost covering the additional expenses of $22,108 for this year. If we project it out over a full year, the staffing changes would be $53,060 increased cost, and the additional revenues would be $52,275. So that's the proposal for 23, is to add the halftime position with really a net neutral impact on our budget. Things we don't know as we move ahead further is we're projecting the operational expenses to not change that much because there shouldn't be more court proceedings. They'll just be split between 2 courtrooms. So there shouldn't be, we don't think, additional attorney costs, interpreter costs, etc. But until we have 2 courtrooms and we see how that works, we just don't know for sure. And then as part of the 24 budget process, we do have a request from the clerk of court to create a full-time position in her office, which would go beyond what we're proposing. But we'll take that up as part of the 24 budget process.
My question is, and what I heard in finance is our Judge Yackel will be farmed out, say. I guess I don't understand all that. I mean, when we were doing all this, we needed both judges here. Now we don't need them after we get all this built? Can you, I guess
Yeah.
I don't understand why this is happening.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know what you were told when this all started, but the explanation and my understanding is that you have based on the court system's assessment of your caseload here, our caseload, we have a justification for 1.8 judges. The judge has been carrying a 1.8 caseload. And so when we split that between two judges, it takes it down to less than one apiece. So 90%. So they have capacity to work, be farmed out to substitute in other counties, which is commonplace. I mean, we have judges that come from other counties to substitute here that have the capacity to do so. So when there's a conflict of interest or some reason that they need a substitute judge, they'll pull somebody from another county that has capacity to come in here and do our cases. And so now that we're going to have two judges and less than a full caseload for each. And I don't know where their threshold is. Like if we had 2.1 caseloads, would they still farm them out? I don't know that, but I do know that they've already assigned cases outside the county to Judge Yackel.
Okay. So my next question is, if they get signed out, Judge Yackel does, there's no cases that are before him that he's getting farmed out on in our court system? You know what I'm saying? Say,
I don't understand.
say Judge Yackel, say he's got a court date for whatever day he's supposed to be farmed out. Does he go out to his farm out one, or does he stay here and do this one, or is there somebody brought in to do that court case?
You know, that's the part of the judicial assistant's responsibility to coordinate those schedules. So if he's got a case here, they don't
Okay,
she, assuming it's she right now, Anna's job now is to schedule the judge and juggle the court case calendar. And so when he starts getting farmed out, she will also manage his schedule.
oh, okay.
And because that's part of what our discussion was in finance, was that if he has a case in another county, it's still him and his judicial assistant's responsibility to schedule that case, get the courtroom, make sure the attorneys that are assigned to the case are there. So that's still, once you're assigned the case, it's all, you're coordinating everything from there.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks, Andy.
Same thing when we get assigned a judge to a case here from another county, that judge and his staff are working with our court staff to coordinate everything.
And this passed public safety, right?
Yeah, we went through with public safety and kicked it up to this committee and then to go to the board.
Okay.
That same resolution that's attached was approved at public safety.
Okay. Are there any questions?
You're really right. We don't end up with two judges. We end up with two judges less, whatever they assign Anna out,
Yeah.
it's maybe 25% of its time. So
We'll take off 25% of the court.
yeah, there we go.
All right.
Thanks. Question?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Duffy.
Turn your mic on.
Tom, want to turn your mic on there?
You've eliminated the register and probate. Is the
Yep.
clerk, have they agreed to take on that extra duty?
Yes, everybody's been very cooperative with the understanding that this is always going to be assessed as we move forward. So what we're doing is not unique. So Washburn County, a number of years ago, the register and probate duties were assigned to the clerk of court. The clerk of court was actually the clerk of court and the register and probate. Some counties, it's the deputy that's assigned as the register. Russ County, they've done this where all the judicial assistant, the register and probate are all in the clerk of court's office and they share their duties. The juvenile court clerk, we're doing it Barron County. From the juvenile clerk standpoint, in Barron County, there is no juvenile clerk. The judicial assistants do the juvenile clerk duties there. So yes, I mean, talked to our judicial assistants. The judge is on board with this plan. Marge as clerk of courts is on board with this plan. But she did, we're giving her additional staff in order to do that, do those duties. To me, though, it's also, it's a less painful, but also we were already talking about the registrar and probate needing some office modifications because, they have a window into the hallway. This way, we're going to cut one window out. There's one less window we need to staff during the day by shifting the registrar and probate into the clerk of court's office.
And then also you, on your handout, you got on the revenue, you got court state aid. This year, 52,000, next year, 74. Is that guaranteed perpetually or how is that figured?
This year it'll be 74,000 because we're only going to get additional aid from August through December.
How is that figured, Andy? What's
That's the, right now, the state aid, it's in the state budget. We're already in there to get additional funding because of the second courtroom. So right now we get 40, when you have one courtroom, you get 42,275 plus $10,000. When you have two courtrooms, you get 42,275 times the amount of courtrooms you have. And then they have a pool of money where they divide all the courtrooms by that amount, and then they split that money up. The court has told me to plan on at least double. So we'll get 104,544 next year for the full year.
Is that an annual thing though? Can we
Yes.
count on that?
Yep.
Going forward?
We've been getting 52,275 for the last decade. And now that we have two, we should get double that going ahead. And when the state, let's see how this worked. The state, I think the Supreme Court had to request all these, Sawyer County was allocated, or I don't know what the wording was used back then, where you were demanded to create a second branch, but there were other counties were also allocated additional branches. So additional money was put in the state budget to support the court aid for all of those counties that took on additional branches. So that money is there on an annual basis.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Thank you, Andy. So this is going to be an action item then.
Yep, to go to the board next week.
Okay. Another question. Go ahead, Mr. Kinsley.
And again, the question, I don't know if it can be answered or not. So I keep thinking about the shared revenue. The governor approved this budget?
Yes,
Do we know what we're gonna get for shared revenue yet?
284,000 and some change additional.
Additional? Is there certain ways you can only spend that? I mean, lots of times there's strings attached and.
There is, and I don't have the wording, but it's, we know like emergency services, public safety, court costs are in there.
So we could use court money for that.
Yes,
Thank you. Now. For this position. The registered probate, that lady resigned or retired or,
she took a position in human services.
Okay. So that position is open.
Yep.
So we don't have anybody presently that'll take this position. We'll have to hire for that.
No, we're not going to hire for that.
They're gonna absorb what they got.
That's where we're splitting those jobs to the
Yeah.
JAs and the clerk of court and not filling it. So that's why we're essentially eliminating that combined position.
Who's gonna fill the position? I don't want to ask that. Scratch that.
In the interim, or we've got people covering right now.
Okay. All right. Lynn, you want us to use our voice things, or your computer? Okay. All right. Okay, so we need a motion to approve this courtroom staffing and funding.
Awesome.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Duffy. Do we have a second? I'll second that. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. That's pretty silent one.
We don't like it.
Yeah, my mixed feelings about that. I probably should be opposed to. Not the way Andy did it. Andy did a wonderful way of doing it. I don't like the state shoving down our throat that we have to do this. And I don't like the state telling us that you have to have a judicial assistant for each judge. I think that's wrong. And when he was here last month, he explained to us that not every county did. There was 3 or 4 counties that had that shared position. And I respect that, but I think they should have to pay for that position. Thank you.
That's what the state does. They tell us what we have to do and not do. That's just the way it is. All right. Okay, number 10, Veteran Service Department report, Gary.
Yes, good morning. So for June, our office had 409 phone calls, 279 letters, emails, and faxes, and 130 office visits. For our claims up to date for compensation, a little over $101,000 claims for initial payout for claims decided in the veteran's favor. I took a look back because I've been telling you we've been busy. I looked at last year. Last year, we had the highest rate of business in the history of our office. This year, in the first 6 months, we've exceeded the last year's first 6 months by 120% in workload in just compensation claims and pension claims. That's not including all the other benefits and services we apply for our veterans. We had a 21% increase in phone calls, 20% increase in letters, emails, and faxes, and 41% increase in office visits. So I am busy. So our training's up to date, and I applied for an ARPA grant that come out the state was offering. We've got 2 years. The office has 2 years to expend those resources or that funding or give it back.
How much is that?
It come out to $14,228. And it can be used equivalent. They called it a supplemental CVSO grant. It can be used for like additional funding for help if you wanted that the county did not budget for. It can be used for its outreach, basically for veterans and getting the veterans in to apply for their federal benefits. The change in the law with the PACT Act basically increased my workload significantly. I had my training done in Madison. We had the Secretary of the VA show up, and they had a 30% increase in hiring staff across the nation to support that PACT Act. The reason being is my generation of veterans that have been to Iraq and Afghanistan now have probably, I think they have more presumptives than the Vietnam veterans as far as conditions go. Thus the increase in, there's a lot of things that the VA had denied on the veterans for the problems that we have now that we've come home. And so that went through Congress. The president signed off, and that was the PACT Act. The other thing the PACT Act did for the Vietnam veterans is for many years they denied that Agent Orange was in Cambodia, Laos, Guam, and it's for the most part Thailand, except for they were saying the fence line was sprayed, but nothing else, and nobody else was affected, which was crap. Because it's just like our barbecue up in Canada that we've been smelling for the last 3 months. It goes through the air. So that increased, and they also added hypertension to the Vietnam veterans. So there's a multitude of, I guess, physical, conditions that come out from that. Thus, so the VA, long story short, the VA bumped up their manning, and when the state come through the Fed, they got the federal funding through to the state, and the state turned around and used this, spread it out amongst the counties to apply for the supplemental grant. Outreach, like I said, if you increase the manpower, optimize whatever, you need to optimize or help increase, I guess, the ease of workload in the offices, stuff like that. What I would like to do, I contacted some the billboard company, Lamar, had them come in and it was asked what kind of, but what they had to offer as far as if I was to look at billboards and whatever. Also talked to WRLS, and they have got I intend on, unless somebody has a serious issue with this, but contracting with WRLS to do advertising on the radio here locally. I think they've got a pretty good span, but they agreed to match whatever we pay in funding for advertising for our veterans. So I thought that was pretty awesome, actually. So that should increase our workload even more, but it's important to get the veterans in, because every one of these claims that we do basically removes, we paid federal tax dollars for these benefits. And if we get if they get the benefits approved or through the VA, then our county and the state taxes are not being utilized to take care of these needs. So, and it's just making the county better for every time we file a claim, to tell you the truth. So we're not double taxing or double paying on it. I don't know what else to tell you about that. I want to get some, we hired Nicole. She's, I'm supposed to split her 50-50 with Health and Human Services. It's not working out too good. I mean, she's excellent. The problem is I think Health and Human Services has greater need than the 50% of the time that they do. And I definitely need more than what I'm getting out of that time. It's quite lopsided. I'm working with Andy on that and Health and Human Services, but I need more. So, and it's coming. I think I can assist in, like I said, with some of this grant to help offset some costs. I can't do all of it because I did budget for 2 people this year. So it would be incorrect in using like the supplemental grant for that, but we have some options, but that's where I'm pushing. So I guess we'll work from there. And hopefully I didn't overstep my bounds, but it's just the way it is.
Okay. Any questions for Gary? Go ahead, Mr. Duffy.
Okay. The secretary talked about that. That was a pretty good discussion because we have, we being the National Counties Veterans Association. I belong to that. I also belong to the state and to the Northwest. So national, state, and then local level, basically association for veterans. But we have a lawyer, a law firm out in California that we rely on quite heavily when we get into stuff with the VA that we cannot seem to push through. That we will utilize to help us win claims with the VA. They cost us very little, very, very little. And not the county, but the veteran. If we get to that point where it's like, I can't do this, but I know somebody that can help you in front of a federal judge. The Camp Lejeune garbage that you see on TV, the first 2 months, I think they'd spent over $1 billion. These law firms combined spent over $1 billion in ads on the television. They're not doing that because they love the veterans. They're doing that because there's something to be gained by that. And in some cases, some of these law firms are taking up to 60% of the veterans' compensation if it is successful. For Camp Lejeune, by law, when Congress set that in, it can only be a law firm based out of North Carolina to represent that veteran for the contaminated water or the dependents that lived in there. So I'm hard pressed. If somebody say they got some form of cancer from Camp Lejeune and they got $100,000 from the federal government. You know, said, okay, yep, that we'll accept responsibility for that. At that point, if it was a veteran and they come into my office and I filed a claim for them and it was successful and they had active cancer, they would have been at 100% service connection at that point, which is around anywhere from $3,500 to $3,800. It all depends on the, what they can physically do or not do, and, how bad that cancer is. So the law firms, let's say they take 60%. That's $40,000 remaining. If they come into my office and I can get them around anywhere from, like I said, $3,500 to $3,800 a month, how long does it take to make up that $40,000? The other part of it is, once the federal government says awards $100,000 for this one cancer, the VA need not treat them. They've been paid by the federal government for that disease. That doesn't mean that the federal government's not going to treat them for every other thing that they've got going on. But that is a huge, it's actually a disfavor to the veterans, in my opinion. Now, family members, the VA said that, if they, file a claim for birth defects, what have you, for the family members that were there, they're not going to get paid compensation. But the VA said, if you can prove it, and, as in filing a claim and winning it, the VA will take care of that issue for that family member. Again, how long does it take to make up $40,000 in doctor's bills when you're talking about, a significant health problem? So I think I can't think of necessarily any one type of instance where a person is going to be better off filing suit for the contaminated water versus using the VA. I guess the only one would be if somebody had a significant career after they left the military or after the Camp Lejeune, and they had damn good insurance, they didn't have to pay a thing, then maybe it would be beneficial to file suit against the federal government for the contaminated water. But we don't have that many people around here in that position or across the country. So those are just my thoughts.
Okay. Okay, any more questions for Gary?
They can do a wonderful job, but it sounds like you're gonna need more help.
Yes, and keep up the good work you're doing, Gary. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Number 11. Information Technology Department report.
Morning. I didn't have a written report. Basically been busy with just help desk, helping departments. The usual things. We'll later this month and next month we'll be involved with setting up the electronics in the second courtroom. So maybe report on that. But otherwise, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take those.
Go ahead.
Mike, you sent out an email, I assume it came from you, that we have to do something to these iPads to receive emails coming in the future.
Yes, there's a change with the email software from Microsoft there, and it's a security measure to prevent hackers from getting in. So we can help you with that. I think there's a period of time where we can be proactive and do some setup. So Alex and I will probably come around in the next few weeks or so when you're here, or if we have to over the phone, help you with that. So there's just a couple of steps you have to take, and then things work well. You just do it one time. You have to put a code in, and then you should be set from that point on.
You'll probably get swamped.
Yeah, it'll be busy when it starts being enforced.
Thanks for letting us know.
Yep. Any questions for Mike? Okay. Thanks, Mike. Keep up the good work. All right, number 12, petition for annexation, City of Hayward. What do we got here?
I guess I can explain, and then if Lynn can help fill in any blanks, but this happened last fall. So the city, with on occasion, acquires property and annexes into the city, it needs to be put into a voting block or into a ward. So they've acquired a property that's listed in the correspondence on Ranch Road. They've asked us to redraw the supervisory districts around this parcel. It's currently located in District 4. They've asked for it to be put in District 7. There is no population in that particular parcel. That way, if we do that, it allows the city to place the parcel in Ward 4. Ward 4, District 4. If this happens, they don't have to create an additional ward that would not have any voters. So,
And creating an additional ward is very costly during
Yeah.
election time. Because you have to have ballots for no population.
At the city's expense or county's?
so last fall, we received a similar request for, I can remember another piece, and we approved that change in the boundaries so as to limit the expense. So we're recommending to move it and send it to the county board like we did last time.
So you're looking for a recommendation to move ahead on this.
Yep.
Okay. Mr.
To
Schleter?
approve their request and recommend approval to the board.
Go ahead, Mr. Schleter.
A couple questions. How does this benefit the city?
It allows them to not have to redraw their district boundaries and create a ward, a new ward within the city that has no population. It'll attach this parcel to an existing ward.
Don't they have to do that every 10 years anyway?
They have to redraw their boundaries every 10 years with the census. But this is a piece of property that I think was in the town now and is now come into the city. It's been annexed. So,
They annexed it into the city.
correct.
Why did they do that if it was going to be so expensive?
This part won't be expensive at all. It's if they wanted that property annexed. And if we do not allow this ourselves to redraw the boundaries, then it becomes expensive. Doing it this way is not expensive
For the city,
or us.
for us. There is any benefit to the county not doing this?
Not occurring expenses at election time, correct? Because we'd have to create ballots for that special one piece of ward without voters. We'd have to do all the programming for that unit, even though there's nobody going to be voting there. So it'll create a cost for every single election going forward. Most of our
So
county.
approving this will save us.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So you're looking for a recommendation to go from District 4 to District 7. Okay. I'll make that motion. To go from District 4 to District 7. My motion is to. go
I'll
ahead.
second it, but I have a question. What do you mean from goes?
It's moving from the town of Hayward to the city of Hayward, basically. It's just swapping districts.
County districts,
Correct.
a county district for a city district?
It's gonna remain our district in the county, but it's just going from the town of Hayward's municipality to the city of Hayward's municipality.
Oh,
Save county money.
yeah, okay, fine.
You have a motion, you have a second
Okay,
comment.
we have a motion by me and a second by Mr. Kinsley. Any more discussion?
No, by Mr. Schleter. The second by Mr. Schleter.
Oh, but Mr. Schleter's second. Go ahead.
I have a discussion.
Oh, go ahead, John.
Gary Gillis is the mayor of the city of Hayward now, and not Charlie.
Correct.
Because every time the county went to the city to ask for something, Charlie said no. Everything. And I think that's wrong. And now they're asking us for cooperation. Good thing they changed mayors. Thank you.
Who is the mayor now?
Gary Gillis.
Gary Gillis.
Did you read your paper?
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor to approve moving District 4 to District 7. Do you want to do voice, Lynn, or you want to use it? Okay. Is there any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? I guess motion carries. All right, thank you. Okay, number 13, Human Resources Report. Rose, good morning.
How are you all?
We're good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Been doing a lot of interviewing, a lot of hiring. We're making headway on all of our openings, which is promising. We're down to one opening in Radisson. I apologize, one opening in the Hayward shop for highway. Making a lot of headway on our paramedics and our EMS staff. Making a lot of headway in the jail. We should be able to bring the female inmates back pretty quick. Making a lot of headway in Health and Human Services. So, yes, it's encouraging.
Okay,
How many women do we have there?
Probably about 15.
stays right around that amount, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, it's $45 per day per inmate.
That doesn't cover the transportation cost.
Correct.
No. Okay, any questions for Rose?
I think she does a wonderful job. Thank you.
You do. Thank you, Rose. Okay, number 14, county clerk report. Lynn?
Correct. You'll see you've got the numbers there for the counter. Our activity is down just slightly because now we can no longer issue work permits. No counties are available to do that. The state took that over in their program online. So all of our calls, people have come in saying that they are struggling with that site, but we give them the phone number for the state to give them assistance because we can't troubleshoot for them as we can't see their logins. WEC, the Wisconsin Election Commission, has sent out 4-year postcards to voters who have not voted in 4 years. That means they are considered inactive. And voters have a period of time to return those postcards saying, yes, I am still on your voter roll. I want to remain there. If they do not return a postcard or they come back undeliverable, if they come back undeliverable, we can deactivate them from the voter roll. But if they do not return a postcard, then on July 31st, they will become suspended. And if they could show up at a polling location, they'll just have to re-register to vote again. So it doesn't prevent them from voting. They would just have to do the re-register process. And the other big thing we've been doing is we met with the animal control officer. My deputy and I met with Andy last week to go over the dog licensing procedures and try to streamline that a little bit better, make it easier for state reporting at the end of the year. So we think we're on a track for getting that improved.
Okay. Any questions for Lynn?
Yes, there are. And we're trying to develop a process. We're going to try to collect more emails so that we can run a report at the end of the year for those who were showing dogs licensed previous years who no longer were getting licenses, so we can try to contact them and say, hey, is the dog alive? If not,
Yeah.
get it licensed, which we haven't been able to do since at least Sherry Shelton leaving.
Do most people comply with the dog license? Or do we have a lot of tickets?
Yeah, there's a good share of tickets. And late
Yeah.
fees.
We don't, like Lynn said, there, year to year, there's a lot of drop off in the amount of licenses. Dogs that were licensed this year that aren't licensed in following years. So, but we don't go around and look for those animals. You end up citing them when there's an animal complaint or something happens where you come across that animal. our animal control officer is working closely with the veterinarians who also help us with licensing. So that if the person brings an animal in to have care done, making sure they're licensed, and if not, they can sell them a license as part of their vet visit.
Okay. Any more questions for Lynn? Thank you, Lynn. Okay, number 15, County Administrator's Report, Andy.
I'll give you a verbal rundown and get it typed up for the board agenda next week. Courthouse renovation. And some of you've heard this in other meetings, but we're 2 weeks behind schedule, partly because of the delays in getting the first phase done. When I say 2 weeks behind, we've been 2 weeks behind now for a few months, so we know that. That gets us the building August 1st, and then we have those 2 weeks, beginning of August, to finish up our work with our AV contractor. The office furniture people will be here on the 31st to install their furniture and additional signage. CCAP will be here in the 2 weeks in August to get all the CCAP is the court systems, computer, IT people, to get all the communication devices working. So we're still on track, though, as we have been since the start of phase 2, to have the building done and complete and ready for court on August 14th for the second judge. You should have all received a invite to the investiture for Judge Isham, which will be on the 11th on Friday at, I think it was 3:30. So we're tracking all right. You see when you walked in the old section where the temporary wall is down and the new wall is up, and they're getting that painted. Drop ceiling is probably going in right now to get that completed. Landscaping, parking, curb and gutter, all that work has been completed on the east side. And it's being done this week on the west side. Probably some of it's been done. I'm not sure if they'll get it finished this week or next week, but we'll have parking. And just you'll note, traffic wise, this is a one-way parking lot out here now. You enter in the north driveway and exit through the south. On the west side, you'll enter in through the sheriff's department parking lot off of Main Street, and then exit out on Old 5th Street. Just the way to control traffic coming on and off Main, that was something we had to work out with the city to have that entrance and exit remain open. Yeah, and it's still trying to get some of the smaller items in, like the flags and the state seal and those types of things. So no major hiccups though with phase 2. One thing I have not been mentioning that I probably should start mentioning, I just thought of it before the meeting, is when you come to the board meeting, actually those are at night, not a huge issue, but committee meetings, day meetings, you might want to leave any weapons, knives in your vehicles, because if there is a court activity, if the courts are active and they're checking people out here with the metal detector, if you want to use the restroom, you're going to have to, cough up all those. They're going to search you to go out the store to get to the bathroom. It's not a real good setup, but that's because we have one door here. If you come into this room, you don't have to go through the metal detector and get searched. But if you go that direction, they're going to require people to be searched or go through the metal detector. So just something to be aware of. Let's see what else we have going on. We did start the new leadership and management training program. As you've seen with some of the filling positions, we've been moving a fair number of people up into leadership positions, and we want to make sure that they're getting the support they need. So we've contracted with Northwood Technical College for it's going to end up being a 16 to 20 hour training program. Ran yesterday for 4 hours, the next 4 Wednesdays now. We've got 19 people going through that. You've heard a little bit, like we met about the dog licensing. A code enforcement officer has also provided some ordinances that we're lacking in the animal control area. In addition, at Public Works last night, the highway commissioner has brought forth setting up driveway and utility permit fees, along with a more improved application process. We issue those now, as do all counties. Most counties charge a fee for that, that app or that permit, because it does take time to put together. But we don't have any ordinances at this time to back up our driveway and utility permit process. So that's going to be another ordinance process to work through. So we're continuing to find pieces of our county code that don't exist, and we'll start working on filling those in. Also noteworthy at highway, they are still working on the cleanup work from the winter storm. They're doing that with the state emergency grant. That work is all on overtime, and they're having some difficulty finding people to work overtime. But that's probably going to continue on through the end of this year, getting those cleanup activities completed. There is an opioid budget now that we have that's been presented from public health to use some of the opioid money. There's still some additional items to put into that, so I think we'll bring that to the committees in August to get going. Like I mentioned in finance, there's been a sharp uptick in overdose activities where ambulances are getting called out to treat overdose individuals. Our sheriff's deputies are having to do that, and it's worn thin pretty quick. So we definitely need to, and it's largely related to the fentanyl outbreak. So and that's a lot of where the attention from public health is going, is kind of getting attention for the fentanyl issues and the things that resources that are available. And then we're also working on delivering coaching or recovery coaching to those people who are affected by opioids. So things are progressing there. It's been slow, but that is moving ahead. Airport, you'll see a resolution next week for a petition for airport projects that went through a public hearing and resolution approval from Public Works last night. The tribal land taxation issues that we've talked about with the appeals court decision and their properties being removed from the tax rolls. I've mentioned it's not a significant issue here as it is in some other counties. Nonetheless, it is resulting in some lost revenue to the towns and the counties. The state budget did have a provision in it to replace that money for us. So we'll be feeding that information into the Department of Revenue and expecting that we will be able to be made whole on the loss of that land value. The other issue I mentioned related to the treasure is we did take some properties through tax foreclosure, the in-rem process in the last couple of years that probably fall under that appeals court decision. So before we go ahead and have another sale of tax property, we've provided the list of former property owners to the tribe and asked them to review it and let us know if any are tribal members, so we can resolve that before we go ahead and sell those properties. And then as far as the state budget, follow up from last meeting as well. So yeah, we are getting an increase in shared revenue. It's, I think, $284,000. We were only getting $25,000 to start with, so it is a $1,000% increase. But you know, for probably the reasons that there's a high property values here, you know, I think our total amount of shared revenue we're getting is still like one of the bottom 3 or 4 in the state, and the increase that we're getting is still bottom 3 or 4 in the state. So it's a help, but it's not a huge needle mover for within our budget, because we don't rely on shared revenue as much as other counties do. But there is some restriction on where that money can be used as far as law enforcement and services, but it does appear to be flexible enough where we can apply it where we may need to in the next year's budget. There is also some other small things in the budget that will have some benefit for us. They did increase the reimbursement percentage for victim witness coordinators, so we should be getting some additional state aid for that as well. I think that's all.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Kinsley.
Is there any information you can share with us regarding Byron and the ventures negotiation?
Very limited. I mean, we've met with our attorney has worked on reviewing the things we can dispute. That's the word I was looking for. And we've communicated that to them, and we have not had any additional discussion. We're looking for a time to go through those.
Which attorney are we using?
Rebecca. In part because she's the one that worked with prior administration on putting the contracts together.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Andy? Thank you, Andy. Thank you for all you do too for the county. All right. Number 16, future agenda items. Anybody have anything they want to see on the agenda?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I forgot to mention one thing that, just, I didn't mention it, but it's because nothing has happened, but we still have not settled the union contract. We're still working on negotiating a union contract for this year and following years.
Okay. All right. Number 17, correspondence reports from conferences and meetings. None. Okay, anything else? Somebody's phone is dinging. I don't know whose it is, but something. Ain't mine. So, okay, if there's no more business, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.